Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce Lisa Gritzner, former chair of VICA.
Hello and good morning. I hope you guys can see me. I'm so excited to be here today. This is the second annual Extraordinary Women in Leadership event for VICA. We may or may not have had one last year because of, COVID. So here we are. We're back. We're better than ever. We're virtual, and we're really excited that you're all here joining us today. I am Lisa Gritzner, as Stuart pointed out. I'm the immediate past chair of VICA, and I am the CEO of LG Strategies. And as I mentioned, I want to welcome you to our breakfast today. I'd like to take a few moments to thank our sponsors as well. And our partner in this amazing event is Cal State University Northridge Missourian College. And you're going to hear a little bit later from Erica, who's the new president of Cal State Northridge. So we're really excited to have them here. And I'd also like to give a special shout out to Wendy Gruhl, who, as I think she's on the board at Cal State Northridge, and she's also been really instrumental in getting this event. This is only our second event, and she's been an amazing partner in helping to launch this event and to keep it going into our second year. So thank you so much. I'd like to also thank our other co-sponsors, SoCal Gas, shout out to them, and US Bank. Thank you guys so much for joining us and for helping make this possible. I'd also like to thank our centerpiece, registration, table, and leadership sponsors. They're all listed in the program, so you can that you got in an email. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at that. And I hope you also received your swag item. I really was excited when we came up with this swag item idea. I hope you are going to use it for all sorts of good things, including breaking ceilings, but also maybe doing a little work around the house. I've named my hammer Stuart, because I thought that was appropriate. And some of our sponsors didn't make it into the swag box or bag or however it came to you. Mine came in my flower, so I was pretty excited about that. But due to print deadlines, but we do want to mention you here. So thank you to Burns & McDonnell, California Resources Corp., Sorrell Associates, shout out to my peeps at Sorrell, Milagro Strategy Group, shout out to my girl, Christina, Parsons, Tierra del Sol Foundation, UCLA, go Bruins, Union Pacific, and Valero. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that as part of our partnership with CSUN, we are joined today by several students. So I'm optimistic that we're going to be seeing these young women up on the stage in the years to come. So thank you guys so much for being here. I am really excited about our opening speaker today. She's a longtime friend of mine, somebody who I find so inspirational and influential in our community. And I kind of asked her to do something that was a little outside of her comfort zone. So I'm just so glad she agreed to say yes. Angela Reddick Wright. She's an attorney with the Reddick Law Group. She's been practicing for nearly 25 years and has been named a best lawyer in America. That is no joke, for employment and labor law. Angela Reddick Wright is a mediator, arbitrator, workplace, and Title IX investigator based in LA. You guys may have seen her. She does a lot of TV interviews, and she's becoming such a rock star. She's the founder and managing partner of the Reddick Law Group. She's a graduate of the UCLA School of Law, and she sees it as her mission to help employers and employees create great, healthy, and thriving workplaces. Angela, what a delight to see you, and thank you for being here. Got to turn on the mic, girl. There you are.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can everyone see and hear me okay?
I can see and hear you.
Okay, great. I think we have queued up a little song to get us going this morning.
I like it.
And if we don't...
It's up there. It's
okay.
Up there.
Okay, great.
And I like it.
You guys should all know this. Kelly Clarkson, Stronger.
You know the bed feels warm, sleeping here alone. You know I'm dreaming.
All right. I think we lost the song or I can't hear it anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if our technical folks need to send me a note, just do so. But that was, if you didn't hear it, that was Kelly Clarkson, Stronger. And hopefully that inspires you this morning and it'll tie to my opening remarks today. So I first like to just say good morning to a strong, resilient, amazing, and extraordinary group of women. Happy Friday and happy Women's History Month. I celebrate each of you today, and I congratulate VICA on its second annual Extraordinary Women in Leadership Breakfast. I didn't realize this was only the second one. For some reason, I thought VICA had been doing this for years, so I'm certainly honored to be a part of the second breakfast. Indeed, each of you are extraordinary in your own right, and I am honored to share this day with you. And what an awesome lineup of speakers we have. Women who lead and demonstrate excellence in the work they do daily. I look forward to hearing and learning from each of you. And thank you, Lisa Gritzner, for the generous introduction, and to both you and VICA for inviting me to speak today. I am extremely humbled. Lisa may not know this, but she actually owes me. About 15 years ago, she, along with a woman named Monique Earl, Ford Earl, who I'm sure many of you know, she's now the deputy manager for the Department of Transportation for the city of Los Angeles, and some other women who worked for former city of LA Councilwoman Cindy Misikowski, District 11, where Lisa used to work. They came together and somehow convinced me over a martini and roasted garlic chicken at the Stinking Rose in Los Angeles to run for LA City Council. Yes, up to that time, I had been involved and had done some good things on a community level, but running for LA City Council was an entirely different animal. And I see former Councilwoman Wendy Grohl on the line and controller. And crazy me, I said yes. Next thing I know, I'm running for council as a Black woman in District 11, in a majority white district. I was going to be the crossover candidate and show how it could be done. You all may recall this race. This is where Councilman Bill Rosendahl initially ran. God bless him and may he rest in peace. And Flora Gil Kristoloff, a dynamic woman. I did not win, but I had a great experience and managed to make a name for myself that led to many other opportunities. And with the support of Lisa, Monique, and other women, I actually convinced myself that I could win the race. I remember the day before the election, I had a drive around interview with a reporter from the LA Weekly. And the reporter asked, Angela, you're really nice and people like you and you were likable on the campaign trail, but do you really think you can win? You're relatively unknown. And guess what my answer was? My answer was yes, of course. And I believed it. Bill Rosendahl went on to win the race, but I really surprised people. I got a whopping 15% of the vote. And what that did is said, wow, she was actually pretty competitive. And it led to people returning my calls who had never returned my call before, people asking to meet with me. People actually cared about my endorsement and my next move. I saw firsthand what happens when you step into the deep, women, and you step out on faith, and how it literally can change your life forever. So Lisa, you owe me. In reality, I owe you. I'm not sure what you can do to pay me back, but I owe you so much. And you know what Lisa, Monique, and other women did is what we as women do, right? We encourage each other to do things we never think we can do. We encourage each other to think outside the box and to make that jump, to jump out of our comfort zones. And guess what, women? When we jump, when we take risks, more often than not, we land on our feet. And we land in a better place than when we were before, even when we don't so-called win. And most importantly, when we as women take risk, we make it easier for the next woman to take that risk and to actually succeed. When we take risk as women, even if we somehow fall short of our goal, we put another crack in that glass ceiling. Isn't that what Shirley Chisholm did? Isn't that what Hillary Clinton did and several other women before and since them did? Didn't they put millions of cracks in that glass ceiling to make way for our now Vice President, Madam Kamala Harris? So thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you and all the women on the line today who encourage other women to jump into the deep. And that leads me to my topic today, which is being extraordinary in non-ordinary times. What a year. I think we all can agree that 2020 and even these first few months of 2021 have not been ordinary. In fact, they have been extraordinary in their own way. This last year has literally brought the world to its knees. For many, this year's has been the craziest roller coaster of our lives. I know that many of you, like myself, are certified type A and OCD personalities. And because of that, we pride ourselves in planning ahead, planning for the future, being prepared for the unknown, having a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and not being taken off guard. Having an exit plan and strategy, that's something we take great pride in. In fact, when we don't have a plan, when we feel out of control of the situation, we feel anxious and out of control of our own lives and destinies. For many of us, that's a very unsettling and discomforting feeling. I don't think any of us could have ever imagined or ever have anticipated that we would experience the worldwide jolt that we had this last year. We never could have anticipated that our lives would be brought to a complete halt and an immediate stop. Now, I know this last year has not been all bad or unsettling for everyone. Some were actually able to pivot and adjust pretty quickly and have thrived this year. Assuming that we were able to maintain our basic quality of life with food, shelter, and family and friends in our network and nearby vicinity, many of us welcomed the halt. Many of us welcomed the chance to refresh and to regroup, to finish some long overdue projects and to take up some new hobbies, to start new businesses or to revision our existing businesses, to exercise and to get healthy, to reconnect with our spouses and significant others and kids. I have one friend who literally picked up her entire family and moved to a cabin in Lake Tahoe for the last year. She told me that this has been the best experience and most welcome experience of their lives. For many, it gave us time to think. The power of just having the time to think. There is so much value in that. And of course, I do not believe any of us miss the hustle and bustle of being in LA traffic. With Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, we were always on time to our meetings and a lot more comfortable. How many pairs of yoga pants do you own now? I think I own about 20 pair. But even for those who were able to successfully pivot and who welcomed the pause, I can't imagine that even you were not impacted in some way by the extraordinary, non-ordinary events of 2020. Of course, the most obvious being the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that came with it, including the debates about stay-at-home orders, social distancing, masking, business closures, and now debates about the vaccines, to be vaccinated or not, and the possibility, God forbid, of the spread of a stronger strain of the virus. What a year. And on the heels of the pandemic orders, we experienced the unfortunate death of George Floyd. And right before the pandemic, the unfortunate death of Breonna Taylor. and the rise and the increasing influence of the Black Lives Matter movement, which ignited a social justice movement that continues to this day around the world. And we saw this even in the workplace, a place that's near and dear to my heart, where I call the 2020 year the year of the activist employee, where employees around the world, whether in a unionized environment or not, came together to hold their employers accountable to their stated mission and values. We all saw it after George Floyd with the rising move of the Black Lives Matter movement. Many companies and CEOs stepped up. They issued statements saying they support Black Lives Matter. They support diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and donated millions of dollars to social justice organizations. In the wake of this, many employees seeing their employer stepping up said, wait a minute, what about us? What about what's happening on the inside? And they actually held their employers accountable to their stated mission and values. We see this in the tech industry, and with companies like Amazon and so many other companies. They wanted their companies to ensure that their actions matched their words, not just externally and not just in the newspaper ads, but internally as well. And employees began to call for diversity and inclusion in hiring and promotion and salary opportunities. As a mediator, arbitrator, and workplace investigator, I saw this firsthand and have literally spent the last year working nonstop, mediating, arbitrating, and investigating claims arising out of the Black Lives Matter movement, out of the diversity and inclusion movement. No matter our political leanings, I think we all can agree that we had a tumultuous year in our government and a spirited presidential election and other seats of consequence. Who would have ever thought? We had killer bees in Washington state, unprecedented wildfires in California and Australia. Harry and Meghan left the UK. And then we lost some of our most beloved leaders and influencers. Kobe Bryant, actor Chadwick Boseman, civil rights leader John Lewis, and the female and gender equity inclusion champion herself, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. May they all rest in peace, and so many others that have passed on. And of course, many of us unfortunately lost loved ones, family, and friends. My heart goes out to you. Despite a crazy year, despite how we feel about it, despite the joys and the pains, whether we pivoted and thrived or struggled, thankfully, we can all say on this Friday, March the 20th, that we are here. We made it. And for that, I celebrate each of you on the line today. For that, I applaud you. For that, I say, girl, you are stronger than you ever thought. So if you've not done so already, you should stop. Take a look in the mirror and, like Kelly Clarkson in that opening song, say you're stronger. Say you are a survivor. If you made it through this last year with your mind and your emotions halfway intact, you can do anything. There is nothing you can't do. So take a deep breath, reflect, count your blessings, and think about what this year has meant for you. While it is easy to just slip back into our old lives and jump back into the hustle and bustle of LA traffic, kid drop-offs and play dates, spouses and significant others passing like two ships in the night, it would be a travesty for us all not to find a way to mark this year and the impact it had and continues to have on our lives. And I encourage you to reflect, and then I encourage you to get back in the game because we're needed. We're needed in our workplaces. They need us to reopen our businesses. We're needed in the social justice movement. There's so many issues that we have to work on. Our Asian brothers and sisters are at risk. Our Black and brown populations are suffering the most from COVID and other social fallout from the pandemic. They need us. Homelessness is still an issue we must tackle. We must be mouthpieces and change agents when it comes to SB 826 and AB 979 with respect to women and people of color on corporate boards. Me Too is on the rise again. Pay and gender equity issues. We've seen it all in the newspaper this week, the lawsuits of women seeking equal pay for equal work. Women's unemployment is at an all-time high. Women were among the groups that were the most impacted during the pandemic. And of course, we still need to fight for more women in office. This is just a partial list. I'm sure so many of you are fighting and advocating for so many important issues. But the most important thing for us to remember today is to take a break, reflect, think about what this last year has meant. Don't let it just be a vapor. Don't just get back into the hustle and bustle of our every lives, but reflect, think about who you want to be going forward. Think about the lessons that you learned. Think about the impact you want to have. And after you do that, let's all get back to work because the world needs us. The women on this line are extraordinary. You're influencers, you have talents, you have resources that the world needs. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to get back to work. And with that, I say thank you again for having me. Have a wonderful day. And I look forward to fellowshipping and interacting with all of you throughout the day. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, VICA.
Yay! Thank you so much, Angela. I think everybody can see here why I tried to convince you to run for office, and I think there's a campaign that's been happening in the chat. So I'll get back with you on that one. So we'll be seeing you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you so much, and we're gonna move on to our next exciting moderator and panel. And this next, I'm so excited to introduce to you. Rashmi Menon, who will be moderating our business leader panel. And Rashmi was such a star at our first annual Women in Leadership event that we had to have her back, had to have her moderating a panel. So here you are, Rashmi. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Lisa. I am so pumped up. And Angela, yes, you need to run for office. So good morning again. I'm so pleased to be back at this event. Let me just start by saying, Divas, we don't do drama, we do business. So today we have an amazing panel of business leaders. And joining me this morning are Dean Jayathi Murthy, Ronald and Valerie Sugar Dean, Henry Samueli School of Engineering and Applied Science at UCLA. Welcome, Jayathi. Joining Jayathi is Deanna Ng, Vice President, Risk Management, Southern California Gas Company. Welcome, Deanna. We also have Kate Phelan, Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Trust Advisory at US Bank. And joining the four of us is Yvette Repose, Chief Communication Officer at Metro. So join me in welcoming these fine and fabulous business leaders this morning. And as the main event is asking your questions, I'm not going to do the bios because you have it in your package. So let's jump right in. Let me start with you, Jayathi. You have achieved success in your business and in a very non-traditional role. What kind of challenges did you face along your path to get here?
Thank you. And first of all, thank you all for having me here. I really enjoyed the opening talk and really honored to be on this panel. So I am a mechanical engineer by training. I grew up in India and went to my undergraduate program in India. I was one of the earliest women really to be entering that trade back in India, and also, in this country too, the numbers are still very low. So the kinds of obstacles you run into is, I would say the biggest of these is that the institutions that you're a part of aren't ready for you. They just haven't planned on women being there. I mean, and this was certainly true when I was an undergraduate in school. I was one of two women in my entire undergraduate class in engineering. And, you all saw the movie Hidden Figures, where, the engineer, this woman, had to literally run across, campus to go to the toilet. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I ran into as an undergraduate, because this was so early in the game. But it's not just physical infrastructure that was missing. I think there's a lot missing then and missing now too. And at that time, legal infrastructures were missing, social infrastructures were missing, frameworks were missing. And that has improved a lot over the last few years, certainly over my lifetime. But a lot remains to be done.
Thank you, Jayathi. I can relate to that in the sense of construction sites not having restrooms for women a few years back. Deanna, can you share with us some of the challenges you faced on your path to your role today?
Sure. I've thought a lot about this, and I think what I would share here is that I was the biggest obstacle on my own journey because I was this odd mixture of confident and insecure. If I went back to my younger self, I would probably reassure myself to know that I belong and that I can be myself and that I didn't need to try to fit a caricature or a mold of what a business leader is. So once I sort of owned who I am and became very genuine, then I think I got out of my own way.
Deanna, that's a very authentic. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Yvette, we are eager to hear from you. What were some of the challenges you faced on your journey to here?
Hi, good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Some of the challenges, I have to agree with Deanna. I think oftentimes as a woman, I remember just being so much more aware of what everybody else thought about me rather than what I was clear about. And sometimes that clarity got muddled. So certainly, like Deanna, getting out of my own way was my biggest obstacle. I think professionally, I started in government. I moved through the ranks at LA Metro. Really, my work at Metro started in construction mitigation. And so a lot of the challenges were really about, I think, two things. One, the role of women in construction is still fairly new. And so having a voice or a seat at the table was a bit of a challenge. And then the other, I would say, was so the construction mitigation program that I led at Metro is in communications. And so oftentimes communications is seen as a soft science. It's a nice to have. It's not really needed. And so challenges around having to face for authentic public engagement was difficult. Couple that with being a woman in a man's environment, it just was riddled for challenges. But if I left you with one thought, it would be to get out of your own way for me.
That's great advice. I do think that we create barriers for ourselves. So Yvette, continuing on that thought, your journey, specifically in construction, what are some differences you have seen in the way professional men and women define success and ambition? Do you see that? Do you see it similarly in today's young men and women, a difference?
I would say that when I was younger, I would be very righteous to say, no, there's no difference. And as I've gotten to become a professional and a mother, I believe that how we define ambition and success, it just looks different, right? It doesn't have to be cutthroat. It's not about who's going to win and get to the top. It really is about being so self-aware that that you're able to make things happen because you say so, right? And so for me, it's not about who gets the top first. It's really about what path am I leading and how I'm bringing people along. So it's very much win-win. There's space at the top for everyone. There's no scarcity in success. And I think that is a fundamental difference.
That's a fantastic message. Jayathi, you interact, and two part of the questions, right? One, when you were coming up, did you see difference in the way you define success and ambition? And I know you're around a lot of students. Do you see a difference today between the young men and women, how they chart out their career trajectory? Jayathi, sorry, you're on mute. Thank you.
All right. So, no, it's been an evolution through my life, I got to say. All right. So, when I was younger, I was very, very focused on success in the terms that I think men defined it. I mean, I was just, a teenager in college, and that was the model. And I think I was very sold on that idea of individual success and climbing the ladder and all of that. I will tell you that over my life, that idea has modulated quite a lot. And my own sense of success now is built on the success of the people around me. I mean, it's part of my job, of course, but I think more broadly, my own evolution has been that I'm successful when the people I care about are successful, and so I've come to a much rounder idea of success, right? Now, in terms of the young men and women I see around me, I think because we are seeing more and more women in managerial and leadership roles, and the idea of understanding of women in the workplace has actually really increased quite a lot, over my lifetime. I also see, I mean, there are differences. We live in a gendered society, and so there's no question that, men and women approach their lives differently, and you see that influence young women think about their lives. And I will say that young women that I encounter demand a much more, they demand a socially relevant role for themselves, and they define success in a much more socially relevant way than I see the young men do it. It's a different attitude.
That the young women demanding success, love it. So talking about demanding success, Diana, have you seen some differences when you were coming up in your career and today as well? Any change in how men and women approach career and ambition?
I might word it a little differently, because I think that, like most characteristics, people all fall on a spectrum, and perhaps there are more women towards one end of certain traits than there are men, and vice versa. But I do think that I wouldn't generalize about all women approaching success one way and all men approaching it another way. What I have experienced is that society doesn't always give women permission to approach success or ambition or competitiveness in the same way as men. So for most of us who have been successful in business, we had to navigate sometimes a very narrow path between what is expected of a leader as far as communication style, leadership, ambition, and what is socially acceptable for women. And sometimes that has felt very confining, but I think your ability to navigate that will determine your success.
Said. Well, while you're on that topic, let me pivot a little bit, go back in time, Diana. So looking back, what would you tell a 25-year-old Diana? What advice would you give her?
I sort of consistent with my first comment, I had the chance to hear Jackie Spear speak in Washington, and I don't remember her exact words, but I remember she told us that as women, we are more powerful than we realize. And, you just need to own that and exercise it. So I think going back, I would tell myself, you have greater power and influence than you know, use it.
Love it. Jayathi, how about you? Jayathi,
Got it, yeah. No, something similar actually, a lot more is possible than you think is possible. You have energy matters, imagination matters, and it matters whether you're male or female, and you have that power to change things. So don't assume that the world is stacked against you. I mean, you can make a huge, big difference. And the bigger thing that I realize over my own life is that the world is changing, and for women, it really has evolved a lot. And so, what's possible at 25 may be what's possible at 50 is very different from what's possible at 25, and so don't aim low. There's a lot of good stuff coming your way.
Yvette, I know there are a lot of business students here today, and they would love to hear what advice you would give your 24, 25-year-old self.
Thank you. I've given this question a lot of thought, and I think the advice that I would have given a 24, 25-year-old Yvette is, who you are is enough, right? Who you are is enough, and you matter. Have a clear picture in your mind, like what is it that you see for yourself? And maybe if you don't have the clarity of what the position is, what is it that you want your life to look like? Because anything that you can see in your mind, you can achieve that. If you couldn't see it, that means it's impossible. And if you can see it, you can create it. In the workplace, what I would say is raise your hand. People are looking. Every day you show up for work, you're being interviewed, whether you know it or not. Be authentic and genuine, because that attracts people to you. When you are trying to be somebody you're not, people can tell. And so just being genuine, bring yourself to the party. That's who people want to be with. When you look around in your life and you're like, I like that person, I like that person's energy. Beingness matters. People are attracted to you because you're you, not because you're trying to be somebody else. And those people are already those people. So rather than trying to do something different or be someone different, just be you, because you will be the best you can be. And also the advice that I never got growing up that I would say for a young person is don't be afraid to seek out a sponsor. Sponsors are people who are going to show you the ropes. They're going to keep you in mind when positions are going to become available. They're going to put you on committees. They're going to ask you to serve. And again, remember, all of those are opportunities for you to get to where it is you want to go. That's what I would say.
That's really great, Eva. It reminds me of Oscar Wilde saying, be yourself because everyone else is taken. So talking about that, Angela touched upon this in her opening speech that we can acknowledge last year was a tough year. Definitely harder to manage work and life. So I would love for all of you to, and maybe we'll start with you, Deanna. Tell me a little bit about how did you juggle authentically work and life? What does it look like outside of the yoga pants?
I do love wearing stretchy pants from the waist down. Several years ago, I realized that I had sort of created almost two identities for myself. One was a professional identity where I kind of closeted the role that I play at home as a mother and a wife. And what that looks like is you're running out of the office to take your child to a dance class and you're saying, I have an appointment, I gotta go to an appointment. Several years ago, I realized that I can send a powerful message to the women that work at my company by saying, you matter to me. I want to have this conversation to you, but I committed to take my daughter to dance class. Can we meet tomorrow? And I started being more transparent about my role as a mother because I realized I can tell everybody on my team that I support their personal lives and the work-life balance, but modeling that behavior is much more powerful. And I didn't have those kind of role models. I had somehow taken a cue that I had to hide it, or that there would be an implied statement that I'm not as committed to work as maybe some of the men who had wives at home taking care of the kids. So that was a journey several years ago. What I've absolutely loved about the pandemic, first and foremost, the connection with my children has grown so much deeper by being with them all day. and by not running around from thing to thing. They all had activities. I had activities. It felt like we were always running from something to the next. Simply being with them has really deepened my connection with them in a way that I'm going to forever be grateful for, and I think it will shape our relationship for the rest of our lives. But the thing I really appreciate professionally is it's made it even more transparent. Anybody who has afternoon meetings with me knows that Jonathan gets home from school. He's going to school, unlike a lot of children. He gets home about 2:25 and he always jumps on me, sends my chair sliding back, throws his arms around me and gives me the biggest bear hug. And it doesn't matter if the CEO's on the screen, it doesn't matter who's there, he does that. And everybody respects it and honors it at my company. So I'm just very, very fortunate. And I think it's forever changed the social acceptance of women being both amazing professionals and loving mothers.
Thank you, Diana. That was very heartwarming to hear. A great message of showing up every day. And talking about showing up, Kate Phelan is actually online. Kate, I'm so sorry you're having technical difficulties. What can we say? It's the year of the pandemic, and we are all doing the best we can. But if you have any questions for Kate, I'm sure to put that in the chat box. I'm sure to ask her. Kate, sorry. So let's move on a little bit to what was addressed in the opening statement about the Me Too movement, right? Many people who present barriers in the workplace, they do that unconsciously. But the truth is, we all can agree the vast majority of professionals we work with are really not the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, right? I know I've had sponsors and mentors who have been such wonderful men in my career. So the question I have for you, and I'll start with you, Jayathi, is how can business leaders, especially us women leaders, identify and raise awareness of these more subtle, but not less real behavioral or structural challenges?
Yeah, so I want to say that even though, most of us aren't Harvey Weinstein, the men we interact with are not, it doesn't really let us off the hook to looking at our roles deeply, right? I mean, you don't have to be an axe murderer to behave, reasonably in the workplace. And we should be able to demand that we need to look quite hard at what we do. And if women don't demand that, those changes don't really happen. I mean, I can tell you about academics, right? I mean, knowledge is power, and knowledge in academics is largely owned by men, all right? And because that's where the power resides. And I know of departments, where engineering departments where women haven't, we hired women 30 years ago, and for 30 years, no women were ever hired, right? So these things don't happen by accident. They happen because deeply ingrained attitudes about women with knowledge and with power exist. And it is our duty to call these out. It takes courage. It takes, you have to take risk. But I think that role is really important for all women, and particularly women leaders.
Thanks, Jayathi. I appreciate that message about calling people out, both men and women, right? When we see behaviors that are not motivating and encouraging. Yvette, what are your thoughts?
I would say, prioritize women, provide an opportunity. And I'm not saying prioritize women over men. I'm saying make it a priority to level the playing field and to provide exposure. When you're out at the office, someone's got to be in charge. Who are you appointing and why? If there are opportunities to have women, and they don't have to be other women who are in positions of power. It could be women who are learning, women who haven't, you're providing opportunities for. I think we have a responsibility to question who's at the table. Why am I the only woman in this room? Or why aren't there any women in this room, right? One of the things that I appreciate about my employer, so I'm with LA Metro, is one of the ways that we prioritize women writers, women employees, women operators, what have you, is by putting together the Women and Girls Governing Council. And it's not only women and girls that can serve. There are a lot of men who serve there as well. But it is about looking at our policies, looking at our practices through the lens of women, right? What does it feel like to be a woman and Right on our system? And when we implement policy X, what will that impact be for that woman? So we're really making it a very intentional effort to make sure that we level the playing field. And it doesn't always look like calling people out. Sure, we do have a responsibility to do that. I agree, but we also have a responsibility to look at our policies, to look at our purposes. I think this pandemic serves as a great opportunity to relook at our mission, our values. Are we really doing the work that we say that we're doing? And are we doing it in a way that is equitable and fair for everyone who gets to participate with us?
Thanks, Yvette. I do think that the more women we see in leadership and business roles, the less we will assume we shouldn't be here. So let's hope that narrative changes. So talking about narrative, Deanna, we do recognize that the millennial work culture narrative around that is really driving for a push for more flexibility, more collaborative, more value-driven corporate culture, right? And you work for a fantastic organization that is values-driven. But talking about this, is this a generational shift, or does it reflect the fact that more women are in the workforce and they are pushing for this?
That's a very interesting question, because when you were describing the qualities of a millennial, I am not a millennial, but that sounds like me. That's what I want in the workplace. I wouldn't purport to speak for all women, but I do feel that diversity in all its forms is allowing people to begin to voice what they have long felt, but didn't feel that it would be accepted. And I don't know that it's just women. If you were a male and you felt that way, did you feel safe? Did you have psychological safety in a boardroom to express those things? I doubt it. So I do think that we are in an incredible transformative time in history, where we're seeing more and more groups that previously felt silenced speaking up. And I do really appreciate this generation for having the courage to take those steps. But I know I personally share those same values, and I just have tremendous gratitude for them opening the door to the conversation.
Thanks, Deanna. You are a millennial at heart, for sure. Jayathi, you're around, I'm assuming, a lot more of millennials, or have been. What do you see? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's both. I mean, certainly there's a millennial attitude that is different. And of course, I mean, so many different kinds of people are trying to enter the conversation, are being brought in more into the conversation. So clearly that's opened up the space in which we can operate and how we define our careers. I will tell you, in engineering, the entry of women is making a huge difference, not just to workplace culture, which of course it's transforming, but it's actually changing the meaning of engineering itself. I mean, what counts as engineering? What are important problems for us to work on? What's legitimate as knowledge? All of that will change as women enter the workplace in engineering.
Thanks, Jayathi. For the audience, I would be happy to take a couple of questions, so please put them in the chat for these fine ladies, as well as Kate, who's here listening in. So I would be happy to take some questions. Yvette, obviously you work with a very diverse workforce at Metro. Are there behaviors or habits that you see as a women leader, women professional, different from your male counterparts?
I would say that there are some differences. I think that when you look at Metro as an agency, I think the last statistic I heard is like 60% of our workforce is retirement age. So when you look at that just generationally, we're very different, right? So there are differences in our approach. There are differences in our culture. What is nice about this day at Metro is that we're also in the midst of an organizational change. So I spoke a little bit about the Women and Girls Governing Council. We also just stood up an Office of Race and Equity. So not only are we being challenged to look at our work through the lens of how it affects women, we're also looking at the work and how we budget based on what it looks like through the lens of race and equity. So we are very much in a transformative space right now, which is really exciting. It's exciting for me as a woman, as a professional woman in this space. I don't know that everyone shares the excitement. I think there are some people that are kind of moving because they're going along for the ride, but others are probably, struggling with it a little bit because the workplace is going to look very different, and it's going to be great. We're already starting to see some of that now in the work that we do, day in and day out, and so yeah, there are differences, and it's a new day, and I can't wait.
Indeed, a new day. So Jayathi, how about you? I'm sure it's very interesting, especially in the educational field. Do you between the way men and women leaders behave?
Yeah, I mean, again, we live in a gendered world, and so there are differences. I will tell you what, again, one can't make huge generalizations because I've had lots of, men, friends and sponsors and supporters. So that's certainly there. But I do feel that, again, women in education, women in engineering and the university are taking broader roles, right? I mean, I just feel like they demand much more of engineering in terms of its obligation to society. They're interested in the kinds of engineering that make a difference in the world. They demand it, coming in. And that's the way they conceive of their roles. And, so I see that for sure. I mean, that's a very clear imprint.
Deanna?
I think I'll answer a slightly different question just because I know we have a lot of women that are either in school or earlier in their careers. And I want to make a plug for finding yourself, even if it's peer mentors, which I think are sometimes the most valuable mentors, finding women who will give you that tough love, tell it to you straight mentorship. Because what I have found in my career, I've had amazing male mentors, but there are things that they will not tell me because A, it wouldn't be appropriate, or B, they wouldn't even think of it because they're men. An example I often recall is I'm an attorney, and the first time I went into a courtroom, my mentor, who was in her 70s and the first female president of the Los Angeles County Bar, an amazing icon in the profession, she kind of kicked me under the table and said, "Lower your voice an octave. You sound like a little kid." And I needed that. And she was right. And to this day, 20 years later, when I get nervous and I catch my voice sounding shrill, I hear her and I lower my voice an octave. That is not something a man will tell you. So I kind of want to make a plug for the women on this call to encircle yourself with women that will tell you like it is. I joke, there's some women on here that I work with, and I joke, like, who's not going to let you leave the house in those jeans that really do make you look fat? They're not going to say, "Oh, you look great." No, I want to know. Make me better. Tell me the truth.
Thank you, Deanna. I think when we talk about mentors and sponsors, Diana, what you're talking about, really having a squad. And it's that girlfriend who will say, yeah, not your jeans, or chin up, or, lower your voice in that radical candor, which is so important, but coming from a great place. I don't see any questions on the chat function, but I'm going to ask you all one simple question, but I want to end on a joyful note. So Yvette, maybe I'll start with you. What are 2 things that brought joy to you today?
On this panel and seeing all of these great achieving radical women who are making a difference in the world, not only for me, but for my son and my daughters. And waking up next to my son.
Great. Jayathi, what are 2 things that brought you joy today? You're on mute.
Yeah, as an engineer, you'd think I'd figure this out by now, but I haven't. So yes, first off, just the sheer talent that I see here makes me so incredibly hopeful and so incredibly joyful. That's a big, big one. And I will tell you that the frankness with which everyone's spoken has been huge, all right? I mean, this was so real, and I kept nodding at, every sentence that you all spoke, and that's phenomenal. Thank you.
Deanna, how about you? What brought you joy today?
I discovered a joy with the pandemic and with my children having the opportunity to attend school in person beginning in January, of waking my children up in a calm, peaceful way, preparing their snacks and lunches, and walking them to school or driving them if I need to. That's my favorite time of every single day now. I never got to do that before because I was always running off to the office. There's just a peace and a joy every morning that I experience today that I will forever be grateful for. And then secondly, obviously this panel, I was looking forward to this so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to other women and hopefully give them some things to think about and help give them the courage to meet their full potential. Thank you.
Well,
please join me in thanking the panel and talking about joy. A lady who brings me joy every time I see her. Lisa, back to you.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, I know that judging from all the comments in the chat, this was an amazing panel, and you ladies are so incredibly inspiring and thoughtful and brave for sharing your stories. I know you're really making a difference in the lives of the people you work with, and thank you for sharing some of that with us here today. And Rashmi, it's always such a pleasure to see you. We've missed you at VICA, and we're glad you're back. So now I get a chance to introduce our next special guest, and that is Dr. Erica Beck. She's the president of Cal State University Northridge, and she is joining us, and this is like her first speaking engagement in her role as the president at CSUN. So we're very excited to have her here, and hopefully I'm going to see her beautiful face on our camera if she can turn it on. On October 29th, this is how fresh Dr. Beck is. Dr. Erica Beck was appointed to serve as the president of California State University Northridge. Go Matadors. Prior to her appointment at CSUN, Dr. Beck served as president of CSU Channel Islands. I don't really know what the mascot is for Channel Islands, but it's probably some sort of sea creature, for over 4 years. As a native Californian, Dr. Beck holds a BA from UC San Diego and an MA from San Diego State University and a PhD in experimental psychology, also from University of California, San Diego. So we are very pleased to have Dr. Beck with us here, not only on the VICA panel, but also in Los Angeles and working with CSUN. So welcome, Dr. Beck.
Well, thanks so much, Lisa. You guessed right. It is a dolphin. a sea creature. Yes. Give away the name Channel Islands. Good morning. I'm so delighted to be here today and to share some thoughts about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. And of course, that of the entire academic community of CSUN, Women in Leadership. And what a wonderful panel and wonderful collection of leaders and thinkers that we're joined with today. And CSUN is so proud to offer this program in partnership with VICA and the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics. And I would like to express particular appreciation for Stuart Waldman, who, in addition to serving as the president of VICA, is also a proud Matador alum and a member of our foundation board, as well as our very own Dean Chandra Subramaniam, for their efforts in facilitating this wonderful dialogue today. In the 1950s, when CSUN was San Fernando Valley State College and VICA was known as the Industrial Association of the San Fernando Valley, CSUN and VICA forged a relationship to elevate the valley through opportunity and innovation for businesses and for residents alike. And now, as one of the largest and most diverse universities in the nation, CSUN delivers award-winning undergraduate and graduate programs to nearly 40,000 students annually. And the majority of our students are also women. And we are committed to supporting and nurturing female talent through a wide range of mechanisms, including the Women's Research and Resource Center, WISE, or Women in Science and Engineering, and Women to Women, a networking event to inform and empower female veterans, among others. So it is really a pleasure to be here today and to gather with such an amazingly talented group of women, including our incredible Nazarian College students, who are with us, but all of the remarkable women that are here with us today. And as I was looking through your backgrounds, I noted that many of you have carved your own path in fields typically dominated by our male counterparts, fields like engineering, green energy, agriculture, water and land use, technology, and biomedicine. Some are thriving entrepreneurs, starting their own companies and blazing new trails. Some of you are working in the nonprofit sector or are fellow educators and faculty members dedicated to helping others. And some of you have excelled as attorneys and in banking and finance. And of course, I know we all share a collective pride in the incredible talents of the broad complement of female elected leaders throughout our communities, several of whom we're going to hear from a little bit later. And many of you, like me, are also mothers who have found the elusive balance of family and career that has allowed you and your family to thrive. Thank you for your remarks on this earlier, Deanna. There's a lot of dialogue in the chat and appreciation for that. And despite what so many of us have been told, it is absolutely possible to be a visionary leader and a mother all at the same time. I have, however, found that it is easier with very large quantities of highly caffeinated beverages. So thank you, VICA, for the Starbucks assist this morning. This is going to be more entertaining for your assistance. Promoting female leadership is really important for a whole variety of reasons, but one very clear business imperative is that the literature is replete with decades of research that indicates very clearly that diverse teams make better decisions and are more likely to excel in their strategic and innovative thinking. So promoting and recognizing women and people of color in the workplace is important, not just because realizing equity is a moral imperative, but also because diverse teams are more successful than homogeneous ones, and our future talent pipeline and economic recovery depends upon women and people of color thriving in leadership roles and transforming the future of our innovation economy. And while it does make good business sense, the representation of women in executive leadership continues to be elusive. In the United States, women hold just 21% of C-suite jobs and 23% of the board seats. And although California is moving in a positive direction in this space, as was discussed earlier, with legislation that is requiring women and people of color to be represented on public boards, we have a very long way to go. And in higher education, less than 1/4 of the presidencies in this country are held by women. Yet at the same time, women have outpaced men in undergraduate and graduate school attainment. The portion of women enrolled at post-secondary institutions has hovered around 57% for nearly 2 decades, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, that is very consistent with our enrollment patterns at CSUN. So more and more women are entering the workforce and assuming more mid-level leadership, but they are not ascending to the top role. And I am really proud to tell you that CSUN stands apart from this trend. Many of you may not be aware, those of you who are not Matadors, that our campus has been led by a woman president since 1992. And I am the 4th woman in a row to have the honor of serving as the president of this extraordinary campus. Outside of women's colleges, I actually think we are probably the only university in the nation to have earned such a track record. And I'm also really fortunate to sit alongside an incredibly diverse set of 23 campus presidents across the CSU, the majority of whom are women. So this is an extraordinary trend towards diversifying the leadership in higher education. And we know the country is always watching what is happening in California. So this representation, like the representation of all the women gathered here this morning, is likely to encourage more women to seek executive leadership. And it is our collective responsibility to cultivate talent and leadership at all levels so that more women and people of color will have the ability to ascend to the CEO job. So there's no question that role modeling matters. But as our prior panel also remarked, so too does mentorship and guidance. People do not become leaders accidentally. They become leaders when they see themselves as leaders, and that is an iterative process. They take action. Others affirm or resist that action, thus encouraging or discouraging subsequent leadership assertions. Integrating leadership into one's identity is particularly challenging for women who must establish credibility in a culture that is deeply conflicted about whether, when, and how they should exercise authority. And practices that equate leadership with behaviors considered more common in men implicitly suggest that women are simply not cut out to be leaders. So it will take all of us to continue to change that notion. We need to encourage young women to assert their ideas and begin to see themselves as leaders and to own their own success. So I will tell you, as an educator, I have always been particularly mindful of the impact that people have on others. And I have always paid a special attention to the impact that my words and my actions have on my students. But as I have ascended in my own career, I've also come to understand the significant impact that I have on others without ever even knowing it. Over the years, I have heard from faculty members, students, staff members, and community leaders that I've never even met personally on other campuses and in communities that I have served, who have reached out to tell me about how my success has served as a model for them to pursue their own. And not too long ago, I had another particularly notable example of the power of that impact. The CSU system is governed by 25 trustees that are appointed by the governor. And a while back, one of those trustees, a student trustee, was a young woman named Maggie Wright. And Maggie was 23 years old at the time, the first in her family to attend college, and she thought she would attend cosmetology school. And instead, I am proud to say she has now completed her master's degree in public administration at Cal State Stanislaus. Maggie was attending a national conference for trustees, and she posted this comment on Facebook. It's an interesting experience being the youngest person at a conference of hundreds of university trustees from around the world. I've had people grab my name tag to verify that I'm a trustee when I introduce myself, and no one seems to believe that I'm a trustee for an entire system rather than for one university campus like most of them seem to be. But that's fine. I'm here to learn and to educate. I do serious work and I take myself seriously. And as soon as I start talking, they'll know to take me seriously too. I was so inspired by her words and proud of her courage that when I happened to see her at a meeting a few weeks later, I pulled her aside to tell her just that. And when I did, to my surprise, she told me that she was quoting me. On several occasions, after I'd heard Maggie make a point at a trustees meeting, I had stopped her to tell her that I was proud of her for articulating her point so beautifully amongst fellow trustees that are much older and more established in their careers than she. And those brief comments led her to understand that as soon as someone was able to hear her brain, they would no longer judge her by her youth or her gender. You never know how you might impact someone and their career. So today, as we gather together, I hope that we will all commit to helping our young women, especially our young women of color, to see themselves as leaders, to take a seat at the table, and to take themselves seriously, because as soon as they start talking, others will know to take them seriously too. All of our businesses and indeed our world will be better served with an increasingly diverse leadership. So thank you so much for the invitation to join you today and offer what actually it was indeed my very first opportunity to engage the broader community. I'm so proud to be here. I'm proud of our CSUN community, and I'm certainly proud to join such an extraordinary group of talented women leaders.
Well, Dr. Beck, wow, that's all I have to say. You're going to be a tough act to follow of yourself in your next speaking engagements, because you killed it today. You knocked it out of the park, and I've loved watching everyone's reactions to your thoughts today in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you much more often, and certainly hearing from you in the future. So we are actually experiencing some technical difficulties, and we need to find some of our panelists for our next panel. So we're going to hop off for just a second. We're going to take a quick break to try to find Laura Friedman and Councilmember Martinez, and hopefully we'll find them here in the universe of the internet, and then we'll be right back and move on to our next panel. So give us just stay tuned.